Party people, welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I am your host as always, Jeff Stormer. This week on the show, I am joined by Austin Ramsay for a playtest of his new game, Saber, a forged-in-the-dark game of mecha mercenaries. It's extremely cool, it was a great game, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. In addition to being the designer of Saber, Austin is also the host of You Don't Meet in an Inn, an actual play podcast focused on obscure role-playing games, which, if you like this show and the kinds of games we play on it, sounds like it might be really up your alley. You can find links to You Don't Meet in an Inn and to the playtest documents for Saber in the show note. Real quick, two things before we dive in. First, thank you to John Bruce, my newest backer on Patreon. Thank you for helping making the show possible, games possible, all sorts of cool, amazing things possible. If you'd like to back the show on Patreon and support the podcast that I make, the games that I design, and all the other cool stuff that I'm working on, you can do so at patreon.com/JeffStormer. Secondly, a quick note that if you are in the greater Philadelphia area, this Saturday, that is April 13th, I will be joining my good friend Kevin Gallagher for a panel at the Great Philadelphia Comic-Con in Oaks, Pennsylvania, on course-correcting the DC Cinematic Universe, which, if you are familiar with my view on those movies, you'll know that I have a lot of things to say on the matter. It's going to be an interesting panel, and I think you should check that out. You can also find links to that in the show notes as well. Next, let's take a moment and throw it over to our sponsor for this episode, Alton Wheelhouse, to talk about their new game currently on Kickstarter, Dimensions. Take it, Alton.
Hey guys, you know what I like? Well, besides what's coming next anyway. Exploring worlds without end with all of my friends and family. That's why I'm super excited to share Dimensions, an RPG designed specifically to teach new players how to play and experienced players how to teach a full role-playing game in about an hour. Check us out at dimensions.games using the link in the description. You'll be helping the show, of course, and then come back and enjoy. I think you'll love what you're about to be a part of.
Thanks, Alton. Lastly, on a technical note, there's a little bit of background noise at parts of this episode. We edited out as much as we could, but some of it's there. You know, life stuff happens, what are you gonna do? And I think with all that said, let's throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. This week, I'm sitting down with Austin Ramsay. Austin, thank you so much for coming on Party of One.
Thank you for having me.
So real quick, at the top of the show, why don't you take a moment and talk about anything that you are working on, any cool projects, games in development, that sort of thing, that you might want the audience to know about?
Well, the big thing I am working on, which is why I'm here today, is Saber, which is my Forged in the Dark game that is focused on pilots, their vehicles, and the war that they struggle to get through. It's heavily inspired by Gundam, I would say, is probably the primary inspiration, but I'm also a big fan of Battletech and Armored Core and Front Mission. I'm just a big old mech fan. But it doesn't have to be mechs. It can be used for other sorts of vehicles. There have been people who've had their vehicle be a big rig, just like a big old 18-wheeler, and someone else had a Dodge Charger as their vehicle.
Oh, Smokey and the Bandit. Oh, you've hit my heart. You've hit my heart.
Other than that, I'm the primary GM for You Don't Meet in an Inn, another actual play podcast. So
fabulous. So, yeah, like you said, we are playing Saber this week. We have gone with the traditional mech approach to the game, which I am very excited about. Though my heart hurts a little bit at having learned that there's that people are out here playing big rigs.
Yeah, there's a player who pointed out you could probably do the Battle of Britain with Saber, which might be a bit odd of a fit, but I guess it could be done. Okay, yeah, I could see that. I
actually really like the flexibility of it. Now that you mention it, like now, looking it over, I really like that you can really tweak what defines vehicle. I think that's really interesting and clever.
Yeah, for anyone who's played Into the Breach will recognize that what counts as a mecha can be pretty darn broad once you put your mind to it.
So, let's introduce our characters this week. Would you like to go first, or should I?
Should we maybe do the squad first?
Oh yeah, let's introduce our squad, and then we'll introduce our pilots, and then we'll get into the scenario.
Yeah, so with Saber, the players are all part of the same squad who are accomplishing hopefully the same goals, and the squad itself has a playbook. So we're going to be playing the Party Crashers, a scrappy mechanized cavalry squad. And so that gives us access to certain abilities and XP triggers, And so the abilities we've taken are Reavers and Formation, which make it when we push ourselves and our vehicles a little less dangerous. And then also when we work together, we get a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're making our headquarters in an old armory.
Yes, just an old, like one of those old decommissioned, probably has a bar in the front because it doesn't seem to be running a lot of, it doesn't seem to be used for a lot else. They've thankfully kind of looked the other way as we have loaded very dangerous, very expensive cargo into the back and said, it's fine, it's just boxes.
Yep, that's probably the hidden upgrade that it has. It's a bar in front.
Bar in the front, mechs in the back. Really the perfect building.
The reverse mullet of bases.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, that's our squad. I'm going to be playing, my pilot is Axel Mulroney, codenamed $, an ex-military soldier who, in his time in the military, was a small arms dealer, had struck up, had a very profitable side business selling off, not like dangerous or like elaborate or like expensive weapons, but like if you needed a box of pistols or like a crate of shells, he was the person that could like, grease a few palms and make sure that it gets underway. I imagine he might be the reason that we have this warehouse contact or this armory contact is somebody that he probably somebody needed a tank and he was like, yeah, I can get you a tank. I can get you a tank by 4:30 if you need a tank.
Yeah. And I'm playing Kesser Drak, call sign Red Eye, and he was an importer-exporter in the family business back in the territory of the Adamant Council of Nor, until he got sick of that, sick of his folks, sick of the Norish culture, and absconded with all the money. And then, since then, he's been slowly blowing it all on failed business ventures, which he swears aren't his fault, that it's due to interference from others, such as his rival Cage, the smuggler. And now has met up with Axel to try and make a go at arms dealing.
Mm-hmm. Axel's rival is a man named Terwilliger. Terwilliger is a very dangerous and reckless mercenary. Specifically, once upon a time when Axel was still in the army, when Axel was still in the service, Terwilliger was basically running a job for a rival power. Axel was deployed to try and stop him and bring him down. And unfortunately, Axel became badly scarred by some very, very deadly chemical weapons.
Yikes.
These were weapons that were highly confidential, they were highly dangerous, they were extremely deadly. Axel was lucky to get out alive. But the problem was, these were chemical weapons that nobody was supposed to have except our top brass. So when a mercenary showed up with it, there was a big controversy of how could these chemical weapons just go missing? Well, obviously it was the guy that we know has been selling small arms. Surely he just took a bigger job, which is why I'm now working out of an old armory instead of out of a very fancy military base.
Yep. So that's a quick go-over of our characters' histories, tragedies, and openings, which are important parts of the characters. And if they get expressed during gameplay, we'll get XP at the end of the session.
Heck yeah.
Another thing that we forgot to mention about our squad is that normally squads have a patron faction, whether they're working for a democracy, a corporatocracy, oligarchy, theocracy. I'm forgetting one, but that's okay.
Is that theocracy? Did you say theocracy?
I don't recall.
All right.
But we are bucking that. We're going to go independent, which normally in long-term play means that you're going to have a harder time of it because you'll have less supplies to heal yourselves, repair your vehicles, refuel, and get paid. But not so important with a one-shot like we're doing here.
Fabulous. So yeah, we open at the start of a mission, right? We open, or do we want to open with like taking the job? Where do you want to start? On the field or taking the job?
Well, we should probably open with taking the job, or at least allude to it, because we'll need to make an engagement roll to determine our starting position.
Got it. So I think that means we open at the bar. We open at the bar half of our warehouse. It is, having grown up around American Legion halls, I can very clearly picture, like, the surroundings. The shuffleboard table takes up the entire back half. I think the shuffleboard table is long and is essentially the separation between this is where the bar stops and this is where, like, the armory begins. And there's stools, there's a lot of, like, ceremonial guns along the walls and flags from really factions that may not even really be around this region. Yep. They're just collecting flags.
Sounds good. I think I'm sitting at the bar, leaned up against it with a Caesar in one hand and a tablet in the other, scrolling through some business proposals.
And I think I am. This is the one place normally, because he's so badly scarred. Axel wears sort of a very thin, like, chromium metal mask, a little bit Destro-esque, somewhere between Destro and the Phantom of the Opera. And I think this is the one place that he doesn't wear the mask, so it's like sitting next to him on the bar as he's leaned back. He's got, and like, a very elaborate kind of hurricane glass where it's got the big bulbous and it flourishes. It's a very large, elaborate mixed cocktail drink that, being this bar, is like, tastes like gasoline.
Ugh.
And he's just sitting back like, ugh. Like, he is so thoroughly in his element, it is almost disarming.
What's Axel wearing?
I think he's still wearing, like, military, so very beaten down and kind of wrinkled military, like a military dress gear, but, like, the jacket is open, revealing, like, a t-shirt, and, like, he's just, this is what his normal dress clothes are, right? Like, this is his anime reference sheet, is the military jacket, open with t-shirt underneath.
Kessler, I'm wearing a brown suit with a white shirt and a red tie, and that is also his, like, standard look. Mm-hmm. He basically doesn't go anywhere without his suit, which is it conceals the fact that it's woven such to be armored.
Oh, that's very good.
I think that you know that,
mm-hmm.
but
and we. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, is this where we want Scratch to come in?
I think this is where Scratch. I think Scratch is, like, meeting us here, right? Like, I think that's. I think just before Scratch walks in, Scratch being our faction contact, right?
Yeah.
Just before Scratch comes in, I think I lean to you as I'm, like, awkwardly comfortable in this atmosphere, and I'm like, Business 101, kid.
Business 101?
Business 101. You meet your client where you feel comfortable. That's a power move. Write that down.
I think I just shake my head. Like, I grew up in a, like, very business focused family. I'm not, like, I agree wholeheartedly, but I'm just not going to comment.
Oh yeah, I'm just steamrolling right past, like, we get a long shot of you just, like, rolling your eyes as I lean back, like, I'm really helping someone out today.
So a detail about Scratch, and I don't know if we want to lean into this, but they're one of the example contacts in the rules, and they are a proxy, which means that they are a digital entity we don't have to use that if we want to. But in Beam Saber, there are digital entities called proxies, which are sort of like advanced versions of Siri. They handle people's calendars, they take messages, they set alarms, that kind of thing. So I don't know if we want Scratch to be one of those or just a person.
Here's the thing. I like Scratch being a proxy partially because I like the image that I immediately get is Axel like talking about. So the plan is we're gonna lowball them. We're gonna the thing is we've got a lot of jobs. I know we don't have, and then Scratch just sort of like digitally appears.
Yep.
And it's just this is running the most basic. Oh, Scratch! Hi, so nice to see you.
Do you want me to take Scratch or do you?
I can take Scratch if you want.
Sure
it's
thing.
It's up to you.
All right, I'll take Scratch then.
All right, sure. Sounds good.
Okay, so Scratch appears and they are wearing a sundress, which is just like a vaporwave landscape. And because they're a digital entity, it's like a window into a vaporwave landscape. Yep. So as they move, it's like the image pans. And their head is just a devil emoji. Just like 2D devil emoji, not even 3D.
Scratch, it is just so lovely to see you. How are you?
I am doing well, and it's always a pleasure to see the two of you. And how are you doing today? That looks like a lovely beverage of gasoline you have there, Axel.
Oh, it puts hair on the chest, is what it does. It's about all of the senses. Can we just get to business?
Oh, of course. So the task that I have been told to bring before the two of you is that Doctors Beyond Stars, they are moving a small convoy to Hollenton. I don't know if you heard about the incident that happened there recently, but there was an attack on the town. It's looking like it came from the Jovangelians to the north of them, as Hollenton is held by the Church of the Celestial Myriad. But the doctors, they obviously don't especially care about borders.
Of course not.
And they just want to go and help the injured and devastated in Hollenton. And they need the two of you to escort them there because who knows who might stand in their way, especially since they're carrying all that valuable medical supplies.
So, I mean, and I think I throw a quick look to Kessler and I'm like, so, that sounds mostly on the level, but I do wonder why you come to us for an escort gig.
Yeah, maybe it's just because we're a small team. They don't want to draw attention.
Whose side are you on?
I'm just talking this through. And Scratch says, well, as for the reason that they've hired you, they haven't told me either, but I suspect it's because you are a third party, not connected to the Myriad or the Jovangelians.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of independent contractors working the scene, especially in hot zones. So I can see that.
Yes, they were, I believe, looking at hiring one of the Exodus Republic Incorporated squads, but they were out of place from my understanding. Too far north, you see.
Well, feels great to be a second choice. So, yeah, I think we can take the gig. I mean, we are, I'd say busy, but you popped in at the wrong time. So I think that we could probably make this work.
Yes, you do seem available. Of course, the doctors have some requested directives on your behavior while you're engaging in this mission.
Of course, as they always do.
Yes. So the first is that you're only permitted to use force in self-defense. No
Okay.
preemptive engagement. It's bad for
right.
appearances. Speaking of that, no looting, requisitioning, stealing, and or destroying civilian, commercial, or governmental property. We are there to help.
Who are you? Are you hearing this, Kessler? Who do they think we are? Really?
I have never stolen a day in my life,
I cannot
Scratch.
believe this. You would paint me as a common criminal.
Indeed. Lastly, no threatening or employing force against civilians. Again, we are there to help.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's in self-defense. If a civilian comes at me, I make no promises. That was a joke. I'm kidding, of course.
Scratch's, unmoving devil emoji face does not respond in any fashion. Even as they speak, the mouth doesn't move or, throb or anything.
Yeah, we can take the gig.
That's wonderful to hear. Do you have any questions before I leave?
So you said the incident, sorry, I know we all like our lingo. The incident is wrapped. Nothing expected. No parties expected to be present as we make our way through.
Well, satellite imagery is rather thin due to the debris cloud in low orbit destroying all of the satellites. However, word is that the conflict between the Myriad and the Jovangelians has moved much further north, closer to their shared border.
Oh, well, good. That's Exodus territory. Hopefully all three of them will fight clouded out, and we just kind of slide our way in. Sounds simple enough, right?
I hate those words, Axel.
Why do you think I say them?
I think that might be the scene, right?
Yep, I think that's exactly the end of the scene.
Okay, so let's plan the mission.
All right.
So, we already have our employer. It's Doctors Beyond Stars. The target. Sorry, I forgot to make a note of that when I was actually at the mission. The target is the Cult of Earth Found, as they are the ones who are in control of Hollanton. Our objective is to get the doctors to Hollanton to aid the people. We already went over the rules of engagement. So now we pick the tactic. This is the method that we're going to use to accomplish our objective. There's assault, which is open violence against the target. Deception, luring, tricking, and manipulating the target. Scientific, engaging with technological power. Social is when we negotiate, a bargain with, and persuade the target. Stealth is for taking action undetected. And transport is when we're carrying cargo and people through danger.
So transport sounds like the natural fit. But I also feel like deception, I feel like there's we could make an argument for deception given that our specialty is blowing things up. And we were told not to blow up any buildings, but, having a military patrol sail through, catch wind of anybody that might still be hanging around, and giving our colleagues a chance to run in underneath.
So if we go with deception, what's the method of deception?
I think the method of deception would be distraction, for lack of a better term.
So we're going to engage any targets along the way while the doctors hurry by, is the idea?
Yeah, that's my idea. We could also go with transport or stealth. How are you feeling, Kessler? Because I feel like we have the guns to. We have a big shiny thing to distract people with. I know that's where Axel is thinking.
Stealth would probably be gentler on our profit margins.
You do know how to speak my language.
But it can be pretty hard to hide a full convoy of doctor transports, not to mention our two mechs.
That's the rub.
Yeah. I think you might have the right of it with deception.
I think that feels like you said, we can't necessarily hide our big shiny killbots. But
Yeah.
we can certainly use that fact to try and hide the others.
Indeed. So, with the engagement roll, this will determine our position when we encounter our first obstacle. So we start with 1 die for plain old luck. Is this mission bold?
I would say so, but I could see it going either way. I think so.
I think it probably is, because we're heading into probably hostile territory.
That, and we are also putting ourselves directly. We are putting a target directly on our backs.
Yeah,
for
true.
the sake of our transport.
So that's plus 1 die.
Mm-hmm.
Is the mission especially complex? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Does the mission exploit the target's vulnerabilities?
I probably wouldn't say so, but I also wouldn't say it's ineffective against the target.
I agree, so no change there. Does the squad receive external support for the mission? I don't think either of us called in any favors.
No, I wouldn't say so.
We do have our rover fire team to call upon. However, that's not external support.
Right.
Is anyone interfering with the mission other than the target?
It doesn't sound like it.
So here's sort of the thing that we'll have to decide is normally this would be something decided by the GM if they've planned out an outside factor coming in. So do we think that we'd want to call upon anyone outside of our expected operations to come in and cause us trouble?
You know what? I kind of do. I kind of feel like there's I especially because we have our rivals as mercenaries and profiteers. I feel like we are going to be far from the only people on the scene.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, in that case.
Yeah,
so that's a -1. And are there any other factors affecting the mission? Anything that benefits or hinders us in our actions?
I think that the benefits and hindrances would balance out here, because I think they're both one and the same, which is that this is a combat zone. I think that's beneficial for cover, but it's also problematic because it means that people can be hiding anywhere. It's also beneficial because, like, the transport that we're giving, I think people are going to, the people on the ground, the people in the battle site are going to see that and, like, be willing to help us, but that also means that, like, if word catches out to anybody that there's medical supplies, it's a risk. So I think all things considered, it balances out.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. So, in that case, we're only rolling 1 die for our engagement because our bold got canceled out. So, do you want to roll the 1 die?
Sure can. That's going to be a generic roll, correct?
Fortune roll, but...
Fortune roll. Number of dice, 1. I got a 2.
You got a 2. Okay.
Not great.
No, that is very bad. That means we start in a desperate position. So, let's see. I think probably what that is that we are driving from Journey City to Hollinton with our convoy.
Oh, not a problem.
And what might be our first obstacle, and how is it so desperate? Maybe it's a Celestial Myriad checkpoint.
I like that.
And how big is this convoy?
I think one large, an 18-wheeler, because I'm throwing in an 18-wheeler here.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, an 18-wheel, basically, military-style transport. Covered up with all of our various doctors and, like, boxes of equipment kind of scattered. And then about maybe 4 to 6 smaller, either single-person cars or Jeeps or Humvees. Smaller vehicles ranging from, like, a car to a Humvee.
Okay. So I'm going to put 2 clocks.
Okay.
on. The 4-tick clock will be the health of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 6-tick clock will be the health of the smaller vehicles.
Okay, cool.
And I'm going to also put in how hard do you think it'll be for us to get from Journey City to Hollandton?
As far as to get from Journey City to Hollandton, probably, I think a 6 clock would be good.
Yeah,
nice mid-range
I thought so
6
too.
clock.
So, I'll call that clock arrival.
Mm.
All right, so we've got those clocks, and with every successful action we get, we can add ticks to the arrival when it's appropriate.
Cool.
All right, so there is this checkpoint up ahead. What's in the checkpoint?
I think it's probably, I'm gonna say it's like 2 tanks, right? Like 2 large sort of hover tanks. And they're locking it down specifically because we had already kind of mentioned this, but like I think there's already been reports of like looting and mercenaries like in the area and scavengers. So they're basically like checking anybody that's coming in and out to make sure that you're here, that you're not here, or that you're affiliated, to make sure that you have the proper clearances and the proper paperwork to get in, and that you're not coming in to ransack.
Yeah. So I think we approach. Why don't you describe the vehicle you're in?
The vehicle that I'm in is, I didn't name it, but I think it's got to be just like Romper. It's an Argyle. It's an iNexus Argyle. And iNexus is the manufacturer, Argyle is the model. So I am in Romper. It is an iNexus Argyle quadrupedal assault vehicle. It is an all-terrain, combat vessel. It is a quadrupedal thing with big, long, sort of not jet accented or like functional wings. They just are kind of wings that are lined underneath with smaller machine guns and laser cannons. Mm-hmm. And it has what is sort of like an eagle or a lion head, and on its head is basically a very large, underneath its kind of chin is a very large laser cannon. And the whole thing is sort of patchwork and beaten down. I have clearly been riding this thing very hard in the time since I have left the military.
And I'm in, my vehicle's name is Civil Unrest, and it is a Red All's Workshop gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
It's bipedal, it's got humanoid arms, and its arms end in machine guns. And it's got well-made boosters on its back to move around the battlefield quickly. And an armored sort of dome-like head with a sensor array sticking out of it. Which reminded me, something we forgot to do was pick our pilot load. It might not come up, but it is important we take it in case we decide to get out of the vehicle. Mm-hmm. So, do you want to take a light, medium, or heavy load?
I'm gonna take a medium load.
Yeah, I'm gonna do likewise. So what that does is, if you have a light load, you're less conspicuous and more agile on your feet. And then if you're heavy, you obviously can carry more, but people can tell that you're like loaded for war, and you're a bit slower as well. So there is this checkpoint up ahead. And I think as we approach, the cannons turn toward us, and over the radio comes a woman's voice, and she says, "Halt, no one's allowed inside of the lands of the faithful at this time. You'll have to turn around and go back."
I'm gonna hop on a private channel with, I think my face appears inside Civil Unrest, like, so, Are we glad handing this, or are we jumping straight to distraction?
Well, the doctors are still here, so I think we should at least try and talk through this, right?
Okay.
Don't want any stray rounds.
No, you're right. You've got this. All right, let's see what we can do here. And I hop onto the call and I'm like, yes, as you can see, we are a medical convoy seeking to provide humanitarian aid to the sort of war-torn region. This is, I would hope that perhaps we could reach some sort of mutually amicable agreement for all parties involved. We just want to do good for everyone in the sector.
I think the response is, yeah, that's what the last group of scavengers said they were. Show us some proof.
And I hesitate for a moment, and I kind of lean back, and I say, all right, that's fine. We have, you feel free to, and I click onto the private channel between Kessler and I so that he can hear this. And I'm like, well, you can inspect our resources. You can see the credentials of the people in the transport. We have accredited medical professionals. We should be fine with you climbing on board and seeing what we've got backstage. We have nothing to hide.
I think just in your video screen you see me nodding.
Yeah, we have nothing to hide. We're fine.
So I think that's probably going to be a roll on your part.
Okay.
So we are in a desperate position. Clearly this checkpoint is twitchy from previous bad encounters.
Yep.
And so you're saying we got nothing to hide, check us out all you want. So I think that is probably a standard effect.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like we're trying to hide anything, but we're also not really offering any extra.
I would probably call this sway.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Okay. So am I adding anything or just rolling the 1 dice for sway?
Well, if you want more dice, I could assist you by spending stress. We could think of a devil's bargain, which would give you an additional die at a guaranteed consequence. Or you could push yourself by spending your own stress.
I'm gonna push myself a little bit and get at least the 2nd dice.
Okay, so you'll have to spend 2 stress, and then you can choose to either take improved effect or an additional die.
I'm gonna take an additional die for 2 stress.
Okay.
I think I am just kind of like smiling and putting on as much charm as I can to just like, get them into a position where they're willing to at least look the other way for a moment.
Okay. Do you want me to assist or?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I think I'm going to put my mech into sleep mode. So the weapon's sort of lower, it sort of hunkers down a little bit. It's not all the way off, but it might take me a second to turn back on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am going to spend 2 stress because I have 2 connections with you.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that you get to choose 2 benefits, and the options are improved position, an additional die, or improved effect.
I'm going to take improved position, and let's take an additional die. Let's roll 3 dice.
Okay. Let me mark off that's 2 stress.
So that is going to be sway. We're taking improved position, so we go from desperate to risky. And our effect is standard. And we're rolling 3 dice. So should I go ahead and make the roll?
Go right ahead.
All right. I got a 2, 3, and a 4.
So that's a 4. That is a partial success.
Okay.
Okay. So that means that... what do we think the consequence should be?
I think what it is, so that I think to really kick things into high gear, and really like get into our big mech action scene. I think I know what the consequence is. I think that like this takes a while, right? Like they're really like twisting in the knife and like making us sweat. And your mech is powered down. I think I have followed your lead and powered mine down. And that is when overhead, like, because the tanks are, like, directed at us so that we don't move, our mechs are powered down. Overhead, we just see shadows. And flying vehicles, like, tear overhead. And clearly, like, someone has seen us getting watched. And is moving, and is going to just tear past the checkpoint. Using us as their distraction.
Oh, okay. So, is that the people at the checkpoint freaking out and thinking that we were acting as a distraction and attacking us? Or is it that those other people are, like, on the scene now and are also an additional threat?
I think it's that. And I think furthering that, I think that they are trying to, like, they have laid down some fire at the tanks to try and, like, disable the tanks, the mechs, whatever. They're just laying down fire to basically tear past us so they don't have to worry about it later.
Okay, so maybe we each take 1 point of each of us takes a level 1 damage as we're sort of hit by the shockwave of the blasts hitting the tanks.
Yeah.
So like level 1 damage shook or something?
Shook is great.
Okay. I am going to use my ability Meat is Cheap, Save the Metal, which is my ace ability, which lets me, when I take damage to my vehicle, instead I can choose for my pilot to take that damage instead. So, like, inside of the cockpit, my, like, face slams against the view screen and I've got, like, a bloody nose. But civil unrest is fine.
I think I'm just, like, scrambling. I think I've probably, like, gotten a chunk taken out of my haunch, right? Like, there's just a big gaping mess of a hole in my mech. And as I'm just now screaming, like, we got company, you wanna wrap up your little all of this. I got no words. You wanna wrap things up so that we can possibly survive this and not get bombed out from above? I swear with bureaucrats these days.
She comes over the comms and I think she says, "We aren't equipped to deal with aerial targets. If you are, go right ahead. We'll let you through."
All right. Let us through, let our doctors through, and you got yourself a deal.
Yeah, go on. And I think that the tanks roll off the road, and I think that adds 2 ticks to our arrival clock.
Perfect.
For your standard effect success. So to deal with those aerial threats, civil unrest powers up, and I am going to...
You good to fly, Bloody Nose?
Yeah, it's... I think, like, through the camera, you can see me, like, I've got a handkerchief out, and I'm wiping off my view screen, getting the blood off of it.
Perfect.
That was there. So I'm going to mark off a fine mobility suite and a fine machine gun. And so the boosters on the back and in the feet of civil unrest fire up, and it leaps into the air, turning the triple barrel machine guns onto the enemy flight squadron.
And I think if we're going maximum anime, I think what happens right now is I pop off my like smiling like comedy face mask, and I put on like sort of a something between. I think I put on something between like a Boba Fett style like combat mask. And I like swap out my face mask, and I'm like, let's go to work. This is the plan. Distraction is the name of the game. We catch their attention, we hold it long enough for us to get where we're going. and then we get out.
Sounds good. So,
All right.
I think we're probably still in a desperate position, right?
Yeah,
Do you think?
definitely. They've got height on us. They've got their guns already aimed at us. We are basically we are trying to get out from underneath them. So yeah.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to open fire on them.
Okay.
But my point is not to actually shoot them down. I'm just trying to get the attention of the wing and draw them out of position so that they have a harder time to come around and hit the convoy.
Cool.
So I'm going to use maneuver for that. Oh, okay. I'm also going to use my ability broadcast, which I took from the empath playbook. Since it's just the two of us, we decided we were going to take 2 special abilities instead of just the usual 1. And so I took one of mine from the empath playbook. So when I push myself, in addition to the normal benefits, I can do one of the following. Use my mind to instill a powerful, undirected emotion in others, or paralyze a person with my mind or voice. So I am going to push myself for 3 dice, and then I am also going to instill a hatred for civil unrest in these in these pilots.
I think I'm seeing the hologram of your face, and I'm just like, you're doing what you do.
I think my eyes like shine slightly red with like an unusual glow. As I activate this psychic power of mine. So what's my position and effect? We said desperate.
I would say we're desperate right now. I think depending on how we do here, we could probably get out of a desperate position, but I think we're desperate right now.
Okay,
effect is probably at least standard.
Yeah, standard sounds right.
Standard
to me
sounds
as well.
right.
Okay, so
do you need me to assist?
No, I'm at 3 dice with pushing myself, so I think I'm probably good.
You're probably good.
All right, number of dice 3. Hey, that's a 5. That's
fabulous.
Okay, but a desperate consequence is rough. What do you think happens to me with this desperate consequence?
I think you take off, right? I think you take off. I think that, they hate you, right? And these are trained mercenaries. I think this is when we get our first shot of like inside of one of their cockpits, and we see Terwilliger, and he's got, I'm trying to decide what kind of heel I want him to be.
So you're invoking your rival?
Yeah.
All right. So rivals have special rules because they are extra dangerous. So when a rival appears on screen, we put up an 8-tick clock. And until how do you spell Terwilliger?
Terwilliger.
So Terwilliger remains a threat until we fill that clock. Of course, we don't have to fill it to complete the mission. If you add any ticks to completing that clock, you'll get an XP. And also, Terwilliger gets access to rival moves, which is that once per pilot, he or they? He can just inflict a consequence at whatever position we're at. Whether, regardless of our level of success or even if we've made a roll, just he's good and he can hurt us anytime he wants once per mission.
I think he's going to hold on to that for now, but I think it's important that he be on the scene.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is like he basically drops like a bomb and like knocks you out of the sky and you come like crashing to the ground.
So is that a level 3 damage, or is there is it lower damage and then additional consequence of some form?
I think it might just be level 3 damage.
Oof. Okay.
Or you can take level, or you can lower that damage, but the truck and vehicles are exposed. I'm gonna say if you can take less damage, but it will mean either the truck or the vehicles will take that damage instead.
Oof. Okay. Well, we're trying to get them through here. So I'm going to declare armor.
Okay.
And I'm going to spend it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's see. I think the bomb. So when I'm spending the armor, is that going to reduce the damage from level 3 to what? 2 or 1 or negated?
We'll drop it to 1.
Drop it to 1. Okay. What's the name of the damage that I've taken?
We'll call it scorched.
Scorched.
It was definitely an illegal incendiary device, which I think is how we know, like, oh no, that's Terwilliger.
Okay. So I think what I do is that I position civil unrest in such a way as to, as I hit the ground, I twist enough and put my mech between the explosion and the our the explosion and our wards, and I'm going to again use meat is cheap, save the metal, and so. The cockpit heat takes the brunt of the flames because of the way I've positioned it, and so it heats up, and so I inside, like, all of the controls are like hot to the touch, so like my hands are getting burned as I'm operating the mech, and so I take level 1 scorched instead of civil unrest.
I love it. So I think what I'm gonna do, I think as soon as I see the incendiary device, I just kind of like, we just see like a shadow fall over my mask, and I'm just like, okay, I can work with this. This fits in the plan. All things according to the plan. And my mech romper leans back on its back legs, and its front legs like lock in, and you see that like the 3 toes on each and then like lock, like tear into the ground and lock in. And I'm just like, ready, aim, fire. If I can do some damage to Terwilliger and move our arrival clock along at the same time, that would be ideal. So I'm just trying to open fire at him specifically to let him know that I'm here, so that like he sees me and not the convoy.
All right.
The more time we can buy for that convoy, that's what the mission's all about.
Yeah. So I think you're in a risky position now because of the distraction I posed to the rest of the wing earlier.
I'm going to call this destroy, I think.
Yep. Using raw destructive power against them.
I'm just unloading that like front laser cannon, and it's just, shadow, like the area kind of darkens for a moment, and then bright blinding light as I like try to tear into Terwilliger's like jet mech.
Cool. All right.
Risky. What would we call that effect?
I think that is probably standard.
Okay.
Let's see.
That's 2 dice. I think I am also going to push myself again.
For effect or dice?
If I push myself for effect, what does that get me? It pushes it up to great effect.
Yeah, and that'll get more ticks either on the arrival clock or the Terwilliger clock, depending upon where you want to focus.
I think that's what I gotta
efforts.
do. I think I gotta push myself for. So that means that puts me up to 4 stress, which means I take a scar.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
You don't take a scar at 4 stress.
Okay.
The scars you take when you max out your stress.
Oh, got it.
But when you're pushing with a vehicle action, you have to exhaust one of your quirks.
Ah.
Because it's your vehicle that's getting stressed out, so to speak.
Got it.
So, which of those quirks are you going to exhaust, and how are you employing it?
I'm going to exhaust my heavy step, which is The romper was designed... This is kind of what the romper lives for, right? The romper is designed to... This gun is essentially too large for a mech this size. and so literally what it has to do is, like, it takes a moment, and which is why, like, the claws lock into the earth, and it basically, like, haunches, like, leans back, and, like, locks into position, and basically turns into, like, an immobile mounted cannon.
Nice. Alright, so exhaust that quirk.
I've exhausted that quirk.
And take that extra effect.
Alright, so that's gonna be 2 dice. That is a 6.
That is a 6. And are you trying to attack Terwilliger? What's your focus here? Attacking Terwilliger or working on getting the convoy out of here?
I think it's working on getting the convoy out.
Okay, so you're not trying too hard to hit Terwilliger, just
I think I'm trying to graze him and, like, to knock him off balance and just basically send him a little bit of a love letter.
All right. So because you got great effect, that adds 3 ticks to the arrival clock, which means it's at 5 out of 6. We are almost managed to get our people to Hollanton without any damage to them.
But I think this is where Terwilliger is going to use his ability on me.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I think he recognizes the romper, and he knows it's you in there. And,
and I want him to recognize me. I so want him. That was specifically, like, there's no mistaking that laser cannon and that like, this beat up mech, there's no mistaking it. And I was like, hey buddy. How are you? How are you, buddy?
He comes over the comms and he said, what was your call? A $, right? He says, $. Looking to get the rest of your skin burned off?
Yeah, you couldn't finish the job then. You won't be able to do it now. Some things never change.
Time to rectify my mistake then. And so as he, like, swerves around your massive laser beam, he fires 2 incendiary missiles at you. And so because you were in a risky position, you take level 2 damage, a flame.
And I am going to use my Battleborn ability. I'm going to declare special armor. And expend that armor to reduce harm in attack or combat, to reduce harm from an attack in combat.
Nice. So yeah, what does it look like as you? I think you just completely avoid this damage.
I think that, like, so I have this wing mounted weapon array, right? Like, I have these wings, the idea of which is the romper accidentally is a super jumper, and so flies, but sort of glides. They're not really, like, jet wings, they're just sort of glider wings, so the designers mounted it with all sorts of weapons. Among these weapons is literally just an anti-missile defense ray. And I think Terwilliger deploys these missiles, and I say, see, this is what I'm talking about when things never change. And I smash a button and, like, sparks fly. And just, like, sparklers just everywhere, and the missiles get tripped up and explode in midair, and I'm just like, you never learn. You never studied. That's your problem.
He just growls at you over the comms.
And I hop onto my private channel. We need one last good distraction to take this home. You think you got this?
Yeah, sure thing. They already hate me, so
See, so great. It's your natural habitat. You're fine.
Thanks. So I'm going to light up Terwilliger with my machine guns. Just absolutely open fire on him. And quickly dodge all over the place with my I'm gonna invoke my hot boosters quirk. So let's see. Yeah, I'll roll battle for this. I think that's what I'm doing.
I think that makes sense. I think you're more directly engaging than trying to destroy or anything.
Yeah, so what's my position and effect?
I think your position actually isn't bad. I think it's risky at worst. If not, it might even be controlled at this point. What do you think?
I think it's probably risky because there's still Terwilliger's allies who are
he's got a gang, and I think like even if he is distracted, you're still trying to catch the eyes of the others, and they all hate you. So I would call it risky.
Oh, can I have a flashback?
First, yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think while Terwilliger was focusing on you, I think I called in our rover fire team in their own jets to engage Terwilliger's allies. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. I love it.
Okay. So how much stress does that cost me?
I'm going to call that 2 stress.
2 stress. Okay. So does that improve my position?
I think so.
Effect?
I think that puts it at controlled because you're only trying to catch the eye of Terwilliger, and no matter how much he hates you, he hates me way, way more.
Yeah, all right. Right, and I was also invoking my hot boosters. Let's see. I'm going to take an extra die for that. Mm-hmm. And then, what's my effect?
We'll call this standard, I think.
Okay. My machine guns are fine because I'm the ace. So that bumps it up to great.
Fabulous.
So I am going to roll controlled great battle with 2 dice. Hey, that's a 6.
Perfect.
Does Terwilliger use his rival move on me, or?
I think he does.
So what does he do?
I think it's sort of a I think his mech, I haven't described it, but it's sort of a Robotech situation. So jet that turns into a humanoid that turns back into a jet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he deploys this just in time to just jam you with a knife hand.
Oof.
So just shank you right in the side.
So what's that, I'm taking more damage?
I will say you can take 2 damage, or the 2 of you can can basically both crash in the ground and be kind of isolated and away from the crew. And away from the group.
I'm going to use the cavalry hard points that we have because we're mechanized cavalry, which lets me declare 2 free load of weapons or armor. So I'm going to declare another point of armor. The civil unrest is more armored than it would appear to be for something that flies.
It just like that brown suit.
Yeah, and so I think the knife skitters across the surprised armor plates. Yeah.
And then we cut.
So is that
cut to Axel this kid's great.
And so I think, does that fill up the clock?
I believe it does.
Yeah. So the convoy has managed to reach Hollinton safely, and I think we get over the comms. We get Dr. Panel says, all right, boys, thanks for the help. We've managed to get to Hollinton safe and sound thanks to you. Not even a single bullet came our way. That's, you certainly did your job better than expected. We'll, look you up in the future.
Yeah, you will.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right.
And they end the comms. So do we want to try and have an escape scene, or do we want to end the mission here and just say we escape?
I think we can end the mission here, because I think between the knife just doing nothing, and I think that probably gives you an opportunity to basically push off of Terwilliger. And then that gives me a chance to, like, you know, dehook the artillery mode on Romper and just kind of, like, rear back, jump up, and start gliding. And then I just send him a message. Until next time, maybe bring some acid. It seemed to work better for you in the past. $! And we sail off safely, and we arrive back at the armory.
Yeah. So, I think we get out of our cockpits, and I'm just, like, holding my hands up, like, looking at them as they're, like, burned, and I'm just, like, blowing on them. And I say, oh, go ahead.
I think I stop for a second, and I look, and, like, I lower the mask, and I look like like my smirking, smiling facade has completely dropped. And I reach into the inside of my, like, dress jacket, and I pull out 2, like, synthetic leather gloves. I hand them over, like, it's a good look. It'll match the suit.
I say, I'll take you up on that offer later, but right now, I need to get these tended to.
Oh yeah, right, for later. But with the scarring, right, yeah. I'll fix you a drink in the meantime. I've got a new cocktail that I've been working on that I think is going to be really special.
Your cocktails are the worst, but let's see what it does. I could use a stiff drink.
Yeah, you'll get used to that on the next job, kid. And I think we walk into the armory, and I think that's game.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yes, it was. So normally after a mission, we go through getting paid and going over trust with the factions, see who's pissed off at us now because of what we did, see who likes us more for helping them out, and then we'd go into downtime and hang out to relieve stress, repair our vehicles, get treatment for our injuries, and pursue our long-term projects, whatever they might be. But that's something for a longer-term play.
And that was super, super fun. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That was a delight.
I'm glad you enjoyed.
Oh, I'm very glad. Thank you so much for coming on the show and playing this. This was a blast.
Thank you for having me.
So, real quick, before we wrap up, where can people find you and your work online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at notaninn. That's NOTANINN. If you want to find the rules for Beam Saber, you can find them at tinyurl.com/beamsaber. The rules are completely free at this time, at least until I start looking into publishing with art and proper layout and so forth. If you enjoyed what you heard here, you can go to beamsaber.libsyn.com, because every Tuesday at 6 p.m. I stream a Beam Saber game that's been ongoing for a couple months now, and then turning the audio from the stream into edited podcast, which if you want more Beam Saber, you can watch the VODs on the Twitch or YouTube, or check us out in the MP3 format, although the MP3s are couple months behind because I've been busy with other things to get around to editing them.
I know that feel. But seriously, thank you for coming on the show. This was an absolute delight, and now I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me, and thanks again to Austin for coming on the show. That game was a blast. Be sure to check the show notes for links to Beam Saber as well as You Don't Meet an In, and then follow You Don't Meet an In at Not an In for updates on both the show and on Beam Saber. They're both very good. I highly recommend them both. I think you should check them both out. Then while you're on Twitter, you should follow us at Party of One Pod, like the show at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast, join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord, and then back the show as well as games that I design, podcasts I make, all that kind of stuff at patreon.com/JeffStormer. You can also consider leaving us a nice iTunes review, giving us a shout out on social media, anything to help new listeners find the show and to help us do bigger, better, and cooler things. Speaking of cool podcasts, have you checked out All My Fantasy Children? I think you should, because it's a great podcast and I think you'll really dig it. All My Fantasy Children is a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast on the One Shot Network, powered by you. Every week, my best friend Aaron Catano says, and I take a listener-submitted prompt, we spin it into an original fantasy character, and populate a shared universe one story at a time. You can find new episodes every Friday at allmyfantasychildren.com. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran, featuring the D&D Sluggers. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates, coming onto the show, or you just want to tell me how great I am, you can reach me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And that's it for me. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single goddamn day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.